Greetings, everyone. So, I wanted to take everyone back in time and look at something from the past, something that perhaps you were aware of, or perhaps you weren't. I know that I was aware of the initial incident, but I didn't know about what happened a week later. That's something I only found out recently. But the initial incident that caused quite a bit of controversy was that the singer, Sinead O'Connor, ripped up a picture of John Paul II after doing one of her songs. I remember hearing about this years ago and not really looking into it, and I just assumed that she did this during one of her performances in front of her fans, but she actually did this on the show Saturday Night Live, SNL, that's still going in the USA. She did her song, I suppose, and then afterwards she basically pulled out a picture of Pope John Paul II and tore it up, and then made her statement.
We have confidence in the victory of good over evil. Fight the real enemy.
As you could see there, the audience was completely silent after she did this. And actually, what happened was the producer had told the crew to turn off the applause sign. Now, I don't know whether this was a sudden decision that he didn't realize Sinead O'Connor was going to do this, and he quickly told them to turn off the applause sign when he realized what was going on, or if he knew that she would be doing this and pre-prepared for it by telling the crew, make sure to turn off the applause sign after she's done this. Because it was a shocking thing to do. Back then, in 1992, it was still a shocking thing to see somebody on television rip up a picture of John Paul II. Not just for Catholics, but generally for people. It was shocking. Now, I don't think it would be shocking at all. Other than to Catholics, of course, who I'm sure would react with outrage if they saw a picture of a pope being torn up. But I think other people just would not care, and perhaps they would actually applaud it. Now, Sinead O'Connor had a really strange life. Among some of the things that happened, she was ordained a priest for a while, and at some point later in life, she also converted to Islam. She said in one interview that she was a lesbian. Then in an interview a few years later, she said she was 3/4 heterosexual and 1/4 gay. I think one of her children committed suicide, so she didn't have an easy life. She was very troubled. But anyway, going back to 1992, so Sinead O'Connor does this thing that's really shocking. And then, while that was very much in the media, what wasn't so much in the media was what happened a week later on SNL, when the actor Joe Pesci was making an appearance. Because usually I think SNL, they bring in someone famous each week, maybe more than one famous person. I don't really know, I don't watch it regularly, but they usually tend to have somebody famous on there who gives a monologue, and they still do that now. And so they had Joe Pesci on, and he obviously decided that he wanted to comment on what had happened the previous week because he wasn't happy about it. And he also managed to get hold of the pieces of the picture of John Paul II that Sinead O'Connor had ripped up and had them put back together. So here's a clip of Joe Pesci on SNL the following week, holding up the fixed picture of John Paul II and having some choice words for Sinead O'Connor.
Before we start the show, there's a little matter I want to clear up. There was an incident on the show last week. Sinead O'Connor tore up a picture of the Pope, and I thought that was wrong. So I asked somebody to paste it back together. Joe, we have that picture? There. I think that's a lot better, thank you. I mean, why should I let it bother me, right? It wasn't my show, it was Tim Robbins' show. But I'll tell you one thing, she was very lucky it wasn't my show. Because if it was my show, I would have gave her such a smack. I would have grabbed her by her eyebrows. I would have... what am I doing? I'm making myself crazy for what? I mean, she's just a kid, you know. Why should I care? Anyway, I mean, the Pope's probably forgiven her already. I mean, he forgave that guy that shot him, right? You know what? I saw this whole thing coming. I mean, stuff like this is bound to happen if he keeps forgiving people. I tell you, somebody takes a shot at me, I don't forgive him so easy. But hey, I'm not like the Pope. I'm Italian.
There we are. Now, Joe Pesci actually got a lot of flack for that more recently because Sinead O'Connor died last year. And after she died, some of the media outlets were going back to this event. They were remembering this event, perhaps among other things, but they were remembering this moment. And they also mentioned the fact that Joe Pesci came on a week after her and basically said she deserved a smack. And on social media, people were outraged. How dare he? Who does he think he is? Threatening a woman, etc. Of course, they didn't care at all about what she'd done. They also didn't care about the fact that Joe Pesci wasn't really going to do anything to her. It was a performance. He was even doing it kind of in the character of like a mafiosa. So it was almost semi-serious. I mean, I think he was actually annoyed by what happened and he did want to address it, but he did it in such a way that made it obvious he wasn't actually going to do anything to Sinead O'Connor. He just wanted to make it clear that he wasn't happy with that. Now, I don't know how devout Joe Pesci is, personally. I'm assuming he was raised in a Catholic household. He really doesn't speak about his faith. I was trying to find some information about whether he's a devout Catholic and whether that's why this really bothered him. I do remember once reading, I think, either reading or watching, I can't remember, and I can't seem to find this source now, but I do remember Joe Pesci saying that he likes to go to church, but he likes to go when the mass isn't on. He doesn't like it when there's a mass because then there are loads of people there. He prefers to go into church when there's nobody there and just sit down in the pew and talk with God. So that suggests that he is a believer. Perhaps he isn't practicing in his faith if he doesn't go to the Holy Mass. But yeah, anyway, I thought that was really cool what Joe Pesci did because he didn't have to do it. He could have left it. Even if he was annoyed by it, he could have not done anything. But I would suspect that he went to the people at SNL and said, look, he's going to be on, but he wants to address what happened the week before. He wants to make clear how he feels. Thankfully, they kept the pieces of the ripped picture of John Paul II, unless of course he called them right after it happened and said make sure to keep those because he wants to put those together. I don't know quite how that happened, but they kept it and he put it back together, and I just thought it was a great moment. It was a really great bit of television when he did that. Do you remember this, folks? I mean, I never saw this live. I was a very young child at the time and I wasn't living in the USA, so I wouldn't really have seen it. But do you remember this? Do you remember this happening live at the time? Or even if you don't, what do you think about this whole incident? Let me know in the comments section. Thank you very much for watching the video, folks, and have a blessed day.